Anything else on the Broncos before we move on?
No, let's move on to who we got next.
We're gonna go Kansas City a little bit.
Ooh, love
It's
it.
still, to me, Kansas City is also another team that. So there's some question marks in terms of fantasy wise. You have your definites. You have your Pat Mahomes, and you have your Travis Kelce. The next question is, what are we going to do at running back? What are we going to do at wide receiver? Now, Isaiah Pacheco finished the season off as the RB1 for that team. He was a
Had
fantastic
shoulder
running
surgery.
back. He had shoulder surgery and hand surgery. Again, both things you could come back and play in the NFL the next season, no issues. It's not a lower body injury. He said he's going to be ready to go for camp in week 1. I believe him. However, we know how that Andy Reid's backfields have been flip-flopped around. He was a 7th-round pick that played for them last year due to injuries. You still have Clyde Edwards-Helaire there, who was a first-round pick for them. However, they haven't shown much confidence in him even when he's been there. And then you have Jerick McKinnon, who re-signed with the team, who was a fantastic late-season push to help them to that championship game and overall victory out the backfield as a receiver. I mean, the guy had 9 receiving touchdowns. So to me, that's a tough one to question. And then let's look at the receiving core there. You have
Well, I talked about it. I talked about it today in a
exactly.
short, and it's this receiving core. This is one of the hardest things to decipher in fantasy because you look and even a report came out today after I did the video that Justin Ross looked like he was just a new player there.
Yeah.
And so you have Kadarius Toney, MVS, Sky Moore, Rashee Rice, Richie James, Justin Watson, and then Justin Ross. You have 7 guys there.
Mm-hmm.
And Patrick Mahomes is not going to pepper a dude other than Kels. His name is not Kels.
Correct.
He's not going to pepper you with targets. The leading receiver last year was Juju, and he only had 73 receptions. He had close to 1,000 yards, just under 933, I think. But none of these guys had a lot of touchdowns. Mecole Hardman had the most receiving touchdowns out of any of them, and with 4. So the guys there, it's about where the value is, right? And so, you see Tony, you see Sky Moore, and they're probably the most valuable guys that people are drafting in terms of ADP. But like essentially anyone else there you can get for free. And that is like fine. Like let someone else take Rashee Rice, let someone else take Sky Moore, let someone else take just let them take Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney, because Rashee Rice is going to be there in the 14th or 15th round. A guy that I really like is Justin Watson. Like that's a guy you can get for free. And he had a 21 yards per catch last year.
Yeah, and 15 receptions.
He had 15 receptions and over
2
300
touchdowns.
yards and 2 touchdowns. That's the Kansas City wide receiver core, is a lot of guys like that they're not going to get a whole lot of volume, but because Patrick Mahomes is throwing the football, they can score at any time. It just doesn't know you don't really know whose it's going to be. I tend to think MVS is going to be the guy that's going to step into the
I agree. Well, here's what I was going to say about MVS and the Chiefs. If you look at the top 4 receiving leaders for the Chiefs last year, obviously Kels being number 1. You had Juju, then MVS, then Jerick McKinnon. What 4 things do those guys have in common? See if you can pick this out.
Oh, who is it? Kels?
Travis Kelce, Juju Smith-Schuster, MVS, and Jerick McKinnon. What do they all have in common with each other?
They all ran out of the slot?
Nope.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot easier than you think. They're all veterans. They're all guys that have been proven in the league that are a tried and go-to option for a quarterback out there. And Andy Reid hasn't shown love for rookies that often, period. And the fact that you've got Travis Kelce, Juju Smith-Schuster's gone, but you still have MVS, you still have Jerick McKinnon, there's going to have to be somebody that steps up. And I think MVS is going to take over a big chunk of Juju's vacating options. He had 101 total targets. MVS had 81 last year. MVS still had a 16.5 average and 2 touchdowns. Juju only had 1 more touchdown than him. He just happened to have 20 more targets, and he happened to have, I think, like 30 more receptions. You put those numbers in MVS's hands, and you got yourself a almost 1,000-yard receiver in him as well. So I like MVS in here. I don't know where his ADP is going to end up come draft weekend. You already said who you'd like to take a shot on with Justin Watson, which I kind of agree with. I was going to say the same thing.
Well, I mean,
to take
take a shot on. It's like that's a guy that you can get off waiver wires. Like I've said.
Well, who would you take a shot on in the draft? If you're going to draft somebody out of here that's not Travis Kelce, who are you taking a shot on drafting?
Rashee Rice.
Okay.
Or Sky Moore. So here's my logic behind that. It's like I really don't want Tony. I'm
staying clear. He's already injured. The news already came out today. He's injured.
He's already injured.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that he's going to get volume there. They're going to use him in creative ways, but I think they can use any of those guys in creative ways. Mecole Hardman was the best receiver there last year. If he was stayed healthy the majority of the season, he had 4 touchdowns and missed 7 or 8 games. He was being heavily targeted, especially down at the goal line.
He missed 9 games.
Gadget plays. And I think that Rashee Rice and Sky Moore can be those guys. But this is what I was going to say is I said this weeks and weeks and weeks ago that I don't really care who I get from here. When it comes later in the draft and I'm looking for bench players, I'm drafting a chief, and I'm going to keep him on my team because if someone gets injured there, like let's say Tony's out, like if we think Mahomes is going to throw for over 4,500 yards, and it ain't all going to Kelce, so. You like the pass catchers there. So if you lose 1 or 2 of the pass catchers due to injury or they miss stints or they're not performing, then why wouldn't you take a dart throw on one of these guys who can be just an absolute stud for you? And that's kind of my thought process behind it. Like this offense is going to be really good again, and someone's going to have to catch the ball there. And yeah, there's a lot of young talent there. I would say Sky Moore over Rashee. I like the talent of Rashee Rice better than Sky Moore. But because Sky Moore has been in the system, won a Super Bowl with them, but Rashee Rice really didn't break out. You look at his snap time, like he was healthy every game last year, and he never broke over a 40% snap share. And I think he only did that in
Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice.
Sorry, Sky Moore.
Sky Moore, yes. Yeah. So I was Rashee Rice is a rookie.
I would say that's why I would take Rashee Rice over him.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Talent-wise, I think he's better.
Yeah, he only had 22 receptions in 16 games, 33 total targets.
Yeah.
So like,
never saw the field.
But there's a reason he didn't see the field. So and that's what here's the one thing I will say. If I'm going to take a chance on a wide receiver, I'd probably take a late shot on Justin Watson. If I'm going to take a chance on a chief based on receiving capability, I'm going Jerick McKinnon all day. And there's one stat that just sneaks out to me that is second. He was second in the team here and far above anybody else. And had he had the same numbers as Travis Kelce in terms of targets and receptions, he'd be the leader. Is yards after catch. He had 541 yards after catch. Okay. What's crazy, they say 541. Well, he only had 512 total yards, which means he had some negative plays, obviously. But you look at that number, he had 648 for Travis Kelce. The next closest guy was 465 with Juju Smith-Schuster. He's getting positive opportunities when the pass is coming his way. He may only have 50 receptions on the season, but if you have 50 receptions on the season and you're averaging almost 10 a reception, like, to me, that is going to get you some big play opportunity. And he's also so used at the goal line. It was Travis Kelce, and then it was him. So if your touchdowns are king, when it comes down to it, if you want touchdown capital on that team, you go Kelce. If you can't get Kelce, to me, McKinnon is going to be the next closest guy to touchdown capital there. It's because it was so easy to scheme him into the end zone.
You literally just said exactly what I wanted to say. It's like this just goes to show how valuable those two guys I think are to this offense. And I think that Pacheco, if he's healthy and ready to go week 1, like those are the 3 guys other than Mahomes that you want in this offense. Now Mahomes and Kelce you're not going to get unless you're in a position in the first or second round where you can go and grab those two, because those two are going to be gone in the first or second rounds.
Yeah.
But the other guys, I mean, it goes to show the value. Like, get Pacheco, and I would draft Pacheco, if you think Pacheco and McKinnon are not going to be there where you want to draft them around early, because those are the guys that you want in this offense because they can produce. And this offense is going to be a top 3 offense in the league. And do you really want to play like, I did the stats this morning on the receivers, and Mecole was the leading touchdown receiver with 4. Right? So it's not like these other since Tyreek Hill left, it's not like these other receivers are stepping up and getting 8 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns. Like, it's just going to everyone. So do you really love receivers from a fantasy perspective on this team? And I don't think you can say no, because Juju was productive last year, right? He had 933 yards receiving, had 3 touchdowns, and I think that's fine. But where was he getting drafted? That's valuable, right? It's the same as like Deontay Johnson, except he had 3 touchdowns. He's worth more than an 8th round pick, but he's kind of that 6th to 8th round range. All these other guys, you shouldn't be drafting in the 6 to 8 range, because they're not going to replicate the same kind of production there.
Yeah.
Unless we think that Rashee Rice is going to be a ridiculous talent, or Sky Moore all of a sudden just figures it out, where they come in and get 6 to 7 touchdowns. But I just don't see that happening. I think it's going to be spread out again this year. I think Justin Ross, Justin Watson, they earn spots on these teams. And Andy Reid is not afraid to just be like, yeah, we're going to new 3 receivers. Let's go. Just completely sub out the offense.
Well, the last thing I'll say
revolves around.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I'll say here before we dive into what Vegas has their win line on is, I would like to maybe take a chance on MVS if he stays healthy. If he gets 100 targets and say he gets 75 catches. Last year, Juju had 78 catches on 101. He only had a 9.2 yards per target and 12 yards per reception. So MVS had a higher yards per reception. And on top of that, I don't have his yards per target there, but if you just take his yards per reception, which was a couple more yards more than that, I just like the odds. I like the odds of him breaking 1,000 yards doing that. And again, the touchdown capital is going to be tough, but if he has that 16 yards or 16.4 yards per reception average, you got to think one of those is going to be big enough for him to get into the end zone doing it. And so that's where I think he may have he had better touchdown capital and chance than Juju Smith-Schuster, and the averages were pretty much equal at the end of the season. But again, I don't know if I want to hold
MVS season.
Well, I just don't know if I want to hold MVS and I want to hold McKinnon. But, if I get Kels, yeah, sure, I'll take McKinnon or MVS as another chance, because I know I have a guarantee, and then I have a chance to get another guy on a team that's probably going to throw for 5,000 yards. You want some of that.
Right. I mean, one of the first videos that we did, the first shorts that we did was about, the top 5 guys outside the 100 ADP. Mm-hmm. And MVS was like 183. And it's crazy because he really is. He's a veteran there. He can run all the routes, and he's a deep guy. He's a bigger target too. Like, what I don't see where anyone else is going to really compete for his targets now that Juju's gone. So at least at the wide receiver position, Tony maybe, but Tony can't stay healthy.
Yeah,
and Tony only had 19 receptions last year.
He wasn't used downfield like a big receiver, and he wasn't the same way with the Giants either. He's going to get those shorter plays over the middle. He's going to get those short screen plays, those plays on the outside. He's going to get open because he's a freak with fast twitch ability. But that being said, it didn't take him into a place where he was far and above the best receiver on that team. He's got capability to be a fantastic receiver, but he's still himself. He had 14 catches on 17 targets. So I love the ability for him to catch the ball. When he's healthy, he will catch it. He's got great hands. He had 2 touchdowns. Again, he had a 12.2 yards per reception average. But to me, you're not going to find that big 50-something yard play out of Kadarius Toney like everybody's going to expect him after he showed that one big game his rookie year against the Cowboys. I think you're going to see the bigger play from MVS.
He told the Giants.
Oh, I don't care.
You're just mad because he told the Giants and all their fans to F off.
No, I'm mad that. Well, actually, I'm not mad anymore because we turned that into Darren Waller. So I'm hopeful, but I'm just mad because we took a first round pick on the guy originally. So
another guy that's only going to play 4 games.
Oh my God. Well, Vegas has the Chiefs at 11.5 wins.
Get you back.
Vegas has the Chiefs at 11.5 wins. What are your thoughts on that? They had 14 last year. They were fantastic.
Over.
I would take the over as well. They have a tougher schedule, I feel like, this year. I looked at it a little bit. There's a couple games that could go either way, but if they're rolling halfway through the season, I could see them beating Buffalo week 14. I could see them beating Cincinnati week 17, depending upon where it is. A couple early on season ones that may be tough, week 9 against Miami before their bye week. That's a game at 9:30.
Week 5 against the Jets?
9:30 a.m. What is that? Is that a London game? So
the Jets on that game.
Yeah, you got Jets week 4. You could have a shootout at Minnesota week 5. So there's a couple that could go either way, but for the most part, I don't see them, except maybe the Chargers being the only one that could split a game with them. I don't see them being really beaten by anybody in their division really heavily. Like, you really have to surprise me in their division. So that being